Today, in front of a judge, my stepdaughter called me a gold digger who barely graduated high school. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. My name is Nina Garrett. I'm 43 years old. Your Honor, Vanessa said, her voice sharp and practiced. My father married a woman with no education, no career, no assets of her own. She contributed nothing to his success, and now she wants half of everything he built? The judge, a man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and the tired expression of someone who'd heard every lie twice, looked at me. I sat alone at the defendant's table. No lawyer, no legal team, just me in a gray blouse and slacks, hands folded on the table to keep them from shaking. Vanessa's attorney, a woman named Claudia Reeves, stood beside her client with the calm confidence of someone who'd already won. Ms. Garrett has no documented income for the past 8 years, Claudia said. She has no degree, no professional credentials. She was entirely dependent on Mr. Garrett financially. Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dripping with contempt. She doesn't even understand what my father did for a living. That's when I saw him. The judge's head snapped up, his eyes locked onto mine, not with curiosity, but with recognition. His pen dropped. Ms. Garrett, he said slowly, his voice tight. What is your full legal name? I took a breath. Nina Garrett, formerly Dr. Nina Ellison. Claudia Reeves went pale. The judge leaned forward. Dr. Ellison, MIT, cryptography. I nodded. Vanessa's mouth fell open, and the courtroom, so confident in its assumptions just moments before, went completely silent. Stay with me until the end and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this story reaches. The morning it started, I was sitting in the kitchen of the house I'd shared with David for 8 years. The coffee was cold. I'd poured it an hour ago and forgotten to drink it. David had been dead for 3 months. Pancreatic cancer. Fast, brutal, final. I was still trying to figure out how to live in a house that no longer felt like home. That's when the doorbell rang. A courier stood on the porch holding a thick envelope. Nina Garrett? I nodded. Legal documents. Sign here. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Vanessa was suing me, contesting the will, claiming undue influence. According to the filing, I had manipulated her father, isolated him from his family, exploited his grief after his first wife's death. The words were clinical, cold, precise, and completely untrue. I sat in David's chair, the leather one by the window where he used to read every Sunday, and read the entire document twice. By the time I finished, my hands had stopped shaking. Not because I was calm, but because something inside me had gone very, very still. David Garrett had been a structural engineer. Not famous, not flashy, but brilliant in the quiet, patient way that builds bridges and skyscrapers and knows exactly how much weight a beam can hold before it breaks. We met at a community lecture series. He was presenting on sustainable architecture. I was there because I'd been living in that town for 2 years and still hadn't spoken to anyone outside the grocery store. After the talk, he asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes. We talked for 3 hours. He didn't ask what I did for a living. He asked what I liked to read, what I thought about, what made me feel alive. I hadn't been asked those questions in years. When I finally told him I used to work in cybersecurity, cryptography specifically, he didn't press. He didn't ask why I'd stopped. He just nodded and said, "That must have been intense." It was the first time someone had seen the weight I carried without asking me to explain it. We were married 6 months later. Vanessa was 24 when I met her. She lived 3 states away, worked in marketing, and visited twice a year, Christmas and her father's birthday. She was polite, distant, guarded. I didn't blame her. Her mother had died of breast cancer when she was 19. She didn't need a replacement, so I didn't try to be one. I cooked meals she liked when she visited. I stayed out of the way during their father-daughter dinners. I sent birthday cards and asked about her job, and never, ever tried to insert myself where I didn't belong. But when David got sick, I called her. Every week, sometimes twice a week. Vanessa, your dad's treatments are getting harder. He'd love to see you. I'm swamped at work. Vanessa, he's asking for you. I'll try to come next month. She didn't, not until the funeral. She stood beside me at the burial, dry-eyed and composed, and thanked me for taking care of him. I thought, foolishly, that grief had softened something between us. The lawsuit proved I was wrong. Walking into the courthouse felt like stepping into a machine designed to humiliate you. Everything echoed. The floors, the voices, the heavy doors slamming shut. Vanessa was already sat at the plaintiff's table with Claudia Reeves. Claudia was expensive, the kind of lawyer who wore Armani and never raised her voice because she didn't need to. Vanessa looked calm, almost bored. I took my seat alone. When Judge Raymond Collier entered, the room stood. He was older, mid-60s, silver hair, the kind of face that had seen too many ugly divorces and bitter estate fights. "Ms. Garrett," he said, glancing at my empty table, "do you have representation?" "No, Your Honor, I'm representing myself." He frowned. "This is a complex case involving significant assets. I strongly recommend you retain counsel." "I understand, Your Honor." What I didn't say, hiring a lawyer felt like admitting I'd done something wrong. Judge Raymond Collier sighed and turned to Claudia. "Counselor, you may begin."
Claudia Reeves stood like she was delivering a TED Talk. Smooth, confident, devastating. "Your Honor, this is a textbook case of opportunistic dependency. Miss Garrett entered Mr. Garrett's life at a vulnerable time, shortly after his wife's death. She had no career, no income, no assets. She became entirely reliant on him financially." She gestured toward me without looking. "Miss Garrett has no college degree, no professional background. She spent the last 8 years as a homemaker, and now, after my client's father has passed, she expects to inherit everything he built over a 40-year career." Vanessa leaned forward. "She doesn't even understand what my father did. She couldn't explain his work if you asked her." A few people in the gallery nodded. I felt the room shrink. Claudia continued. "We believe Mr. Garrett's judgment was compromised by illness and isolation, that Miss Garrett used her position as caregiver to manipulate his final wishes." Judge Collier looked at me. "Miss Garrett, do you wish to respond?" I stood slowly. "I loved my husband," I said. "I took care of him because I wanted to, not because I expected anything." Claudia smiled faintly. "Love isn't evidence, Miss Garrett." Judge Collier raised a hand. "We'll adjourn for today. Reconvene tomorrow at 9. As the room emptied, Vanessa laughed quietly. And I sat there, realizing that kindness had been mistaken for weakness. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the house, made tea, stared at the dark windows. Finally, I went into David's office. He'd kept it exactly the way he liked it, neat, organized, a place for everything. On his desk was a small wooden box. I'd seen it 100 times, but never opened it. Inside was a USB drive. Taped to it was a note in David's handwriting. "Nina, if anyone ever tries to take what's yours, show them who you really are. I'm proud of you. Always was. D." My hands shook as I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained files, documents, letters of recommendation, security clearances, publications, and a single folder labeled Dr. Nina Ellison, MIT Lincoln Laboratory. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Tomorrow, they would see. The next morning, I wore the same gray blouse, not because I had nothing else, but because I wanted them to underestimate me one more time. Judge Collier called the court to order. Claudia stood to call her next witness, a financial advisor who would testify that I didn't understand asset management. But before she could speak, I stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit additional evidence. Judge Collier looked surprised. Proceed. I walked to the bench and handed him a folder. Inside were my credentials, my degrees, my publications, my security clearance documentation. Judge Collier opened the folder. His face changed. He looked up at me slowly. Dr. Ellison. Claudia Reeves froze. Yes, Your Honor. MIT Lincoln Laboratory. Cryptographic Systems Research. That's correct. He set the folder down carefully. You worked on classified encryption protocols for the Department of Defense. I did. Vanessa's face went white. Judge Collier looked at Claudia. Counselor, did you conduct a background check on the defendant? Claudia's voice was tight. We reviewed public records under her married name. So you didn't investigate at all? Silence. Judge Collier turned back to me. Dr. Ellison, why didn't you disclose this earlier? Because I wanted to see if the truth mattered, or if they'd already decided who I was. The courtroom was silent. I presented more evidence. Letters from David. Financial records showing I'd contributed to household expenses using consulting income I'd earned remotely. Emails from Vanessa. Years of excuses. Canceled visits. Ignored calls. And finally, a video. David, recorded 2 months before he died. My name is David Garrett. I'm making this because I know my daughter might challenge my will. I want to be clear. Nina did not manipulate me. She saved me. She gave up a career most people can't even imagine because she wanted a life that felt human. I'm leaving her everything because she earned it, not through manipulation, through love. The video ended. Judge Collier reviewed everything carefully. Then he spoke. This court finds no evidence of undue influence. The will is valid. Case dismissed. He looked at Vanessa. And, Miss Garrett, I suggest you reflect on what you've learned here today. 6 months later, Vanessa sent me an email. I'm sorry, I was wrong. We met for coffee. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Standing in my new office now, small, quiet, mine, I understand something I once forgot. Your worth isn't defined by who underestimates you. It's defined by who you are when no one's watching. And I am Dr. Nina Ellison. I always was.